In the mid-to-late 2000s, Sonic games had a pretty bad rap. It was just after the disaster that was Sonic 06, when Sonic Unleashed was considered bad, and Jason Griffith was replaced with Roger Craig Smith. 2D Sonic games were way more accessible around that time, with the Sonic Mega Collection and Gems Collection for example. Why am I bringing this up? Because Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles was the best 2D Sonic game up to that point and hasn't received a sequel in 16 years. So in 2010, Sega announced Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, the grand revival for the 2D Sonic series. Everyone was thrilled, then deflated when the game released on October 2010. So I will be taking a look at Sonic 4 Episode 1 and give my opinions on it. So, first impressions. This game was very underwhelming. Just look at the title screen. This is the official render for Sonic of this game. And look at him on the title screen. His hand is separated from the body and is a moving GIF. Sonic 1's title screen had Sonic's hand wiggling with 2 frames back and forth. Sonic 4 has more frames, but they didn't add enough frames to make it look smooth. They just added more frames just for the sake of adding frames. On the mobile version, you can clearly see it's separated, especially on Android, but we'll get to that later. This title screen looks lazily put together. The name alone is setting some pretty high expectations. They clearly wouldn't name it Sonic 4 just to make it sell better, right? Clearly, this is a really good game. There is no story, and pressing new game just puts you in the first stage of the game. Already, this does not look or feel like the Genesis games whatsoever. Just look at the background. The assets here look like they've been rendered in Fulbright. They aren't layered well either, like in the Genesis games. In Sonic 1, for example, the background assets had multiple layers that reacted to movement. Sonic 4 has one layer, and all the background assets have been pasted on it. Also, Sonic himself just looks like a cheap McDonald's toy. He looks so out of place compared to everything else in the environment. I don't know how to explain this in the video, but controlling Sonic feels really strange. He has no momentum, even when rolling. If you let go of right at any point, he'll just stop completely. It just feels wrong to play. We'll get into more detail on that later, but for now, let's talk about the content this game has. There's only 4 worlds. That's less than Sonic 1. Sonic 1 has 6 zones. Sonic 4 has 4. There are also just blatant ripoffs of zones from Sonic 1 and 2. There's Splash Hill, which is Green Hill. Casino Street Zone is a worse version of Casino Night Zone from Sonic 2. Lost Labyrinth is arguably the worst zone from Sonic 1. And Mad Gear, which is based off Metropolis. So yeah, this game has less content than Sonic 1, and it's not even original! Not to mention, Sonic animations aren't the greatest either. Just look at his walk cycle, it just looks really casual. In the Genesis games, he walked like he was actually on an adventure and ready to go fast in a second. Here, he walks like nothing is happening, it's just a normal day. Calling this the sequel fans have waited 16 years for, it doesn't live up to the expectations it was setting. So, those are some of the first bad impressions this game makes. What about the sound design? I'm mostly going to be talking about music for this part, but most of the sounds are ripped straight out of older Sonic games. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's not a problem, but it shows that Sonic Team is more than okay with reusing assets. The music is just okay. There are some good tracks here and there, but most of it is just uninspired and based off the Genesis games. One thing I don't get is just the game looks modern, but the music sounds Genesis-like. For the most part. The music also has this one synth or instrument that makes the music okay to just annoying to listen to. Not to mention the clownish boss music. Let's compare Sonic 3's boss music to Sonic 4's. Sonic 3's music could be described as intimidating, kind of battle-oriented, I guess you could say, and most of all, it was actually good. Now Sonic 4's. I have no words. Also, the Wii version has slightly different music. I'll give a quick comparison. That's all I can say on the sound design this game has. What about the art style? Real quick, I want to mention the difference between clarity and aesthetics. Nowadays, if you say a game looks bad, people assume you're talking about clarity, meaning frame rate, resolution, etc. But in this case, I'm talking about aesthetics. The art style looks absolutely horrible. Everything just looks so cheap and ugly and poorly put together. It's not pleasant to look at. It looks like it took 10 minutes to make and nobody actually cared whether it looked good or not. That's all I can really say about the art design. Now the dreaded topic of the gameplay. The gameplay for Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1? It's abysmal. What, you thought I was going to say and? No, it's abysmal. Also, I want to mention that this game has the homing attack. It's kind of cool, I guess, but it's completely unnecessary. It exists in 3D Sonic to make it more playable. 2D Sonic doesn't really need it. I already explained how it feels to play, so I'll go through all the levels one by one. Splash Hill is your traditional tutorial level. It's not very difficult to get through, and it's overall pretty forgiving if you make a mistake. Also, it's a good time to mention that instead of having 3 acts with the boss fight at the end of Act 3, this game has 3 separate acts with the boss stage at the end, totaling to 4 stages per world. Act 2 has a vine gimmick that feels very awkward to use. It feels really stiff, but when you pick up speed and swing on it, it feels very loose until you let go of a certain direction. Act 3 is pretty simple and has these pulley-like bars you can go through. How much speed you go through one depends on how fast you're going before you grabbed one. The boss in Splash Hill is literally the first boss from Sonic 1. I won't be mentioning any other bosses because they're literally the same thing from Sonic 1 and 2. The boss fights can be finished within a matter of seconds. The only exception is the final boss, but we'll get to that later. It's seriously a joke to call these bosses. Casino Street is probably the worst zone in the entire game in my opinion. Act 1 has an emphasis on pinball sections, but they're implemented in the laziest way possible. The flippers you can use to fly upwards feel strange too, probably because of the physics. If you don't press a direction afterwards, you'll stop moving horizontally, but you'll keep going up and down. You can still move horizontally after falling. Hell, you can turn around in the air, which is something you could never do in the Genesis games. It doesn't feel right. And this is where you can see the physics are really screwed up. You can try to pick up speed at this section by rolling, and it doesn't work. Arguably the best section in Sonic 2 for Casino Night has been removed here. Act 2 has this weird card gimmick. If you pass by some cards, they'll add up at the bottom of the screen. Getting 3 of each icon will give you a reward. If you get 3 Sonics, it will give you an extra life. And rings will get you 10 rings. Another example of broken physics. Really? Act 3 is a really slow and boring level. It has you blasting from cannon to cannon to figure out where you're supposed to go. It's not always clear where you have to go, so you have to figure it out yourself, even when there's multiple pathways, making it even more boring. And also, this is where the game starts to get more frustrating. Most of the time in Sonic games, if you miss your chance for the fast route, The worst that would happen is that you would go to a lower part of the level with a slower route. Here, the game punishes you for expecting that, and you're forced to learn this the hard way, making this level even more boring. The rest of the game, while better, it's still not great. Labyrinth Zone Act 1 has this boulder gimmick that shows up once and then never again. Act 2 has Sonic carrying a torch and lighting up his path with candles or blowing up TNT in his path. It also has some minecart sections that feel kind of unnecessary. Act 3 is another boring level. It has this water cage thing, I don't know what you're supposed to call it, where you have to push this block out to continue. The boss is pretty bad. The start is similar to Sonic 1, then it has this gimmick where you have to hit Eggman before the wall crushes you. There are save zones that you can get to, one of them with Eggman, and most of the time one of them without. And do that a couple times, and then you win. There are not many mechanics in Act 1 and Act 2. But Act 3 has a literal crushing wall of death chasing you. There are also these air pumps that act the same way as springs, and these gears that you have to walk on to progress. Now you have the final stage in the game, Egg Station Zone. This is basically a boss rush until you fight the 26-hit Death Egg robot. This is a really drawn out fight and lasts over 5 minutes. There's this final attack that literally breaks the floor beneath you, causing you to fall and lose a life, even several minutes into the fight. Unless you know to deal the finishing blow right before he attacks and breaks the floor, you'll defeat Eggman and finish the game. Sonic will run through Splash Hill again with his animal buddies and strike a pose, ending the game. After that, Eggman comes into frame and tells you to collect all the Chaos Emeralds for the true ending. Now would be a good time to talk about the special stages, and these are by far the most functioning thing in the game. Instead of you controlling Sonic, you rotate the maze to guide Sonic. There is also a time limit for some reason. It adds an extra layer of frustration and difficulty, I guess you could say, but it just puts more stress on you. Also, for some reason, if you're about to fail, you can literally just pause the game and hit retry. Such a stupid but useful exploit. It doesn't even cost a life or anything. After getting the Chaos Emeralds, you unlock the game's biggest reward, the ability to transform into Super Sonic when you have at least 50 rings. Another thing the Emeralds do is unlock the true ending, where it shows Metal Sonic with a to be continued sign, clearly being a teaser for episode 2. For 100% completion, this is a giant waste of time, as some level gimmicks don't even allow you to go that much faster. Hope that seems worth it to you, because to me that was a big waste of time. But wait, there's still more. We still have to talk about the mobile port. There are 2 different stages here. First, instead of Road of Cards in Act 2 of Casino Street, we have the 100,000 point challenge. Sonic is stuck in a ball for the entirety of the stage, where you're stuck in this arena with a pinball machine and a point generator. Using these, you have to get 100,000 points as fast as you can. It's kinda boring. Next one is Strange Minecart instead of World of Darkness. This entire level is based around this minecart instead of the torch gimmick. It's a good time to mention the different control methods that the mobile version has. You can either tilt your device to move left or right, or you can swipe up and down. Labyrinth Act 2 is even more boring than the PS3 version. The control methods also apply for the special stages. You can either tilt your device to shift the stage left or right, or you can swipe up and down. By the way, the sound effects are lower pitch for whatever reason. It's kind of weird. Fun fact, this game wasn't even supposed to be called Sonic 4. That's right, you heard me. This game was supposed to be just a mobile exclusive game called Sonic the Portable Adventure. They just felt like it wouldn't sell well because it was a mobile exclusive. So that's why they changed it to Sonic 4 and ported it to literally all the platforms that was available. As a mobile game, it would be okay, but they just decided to call it Sonic 4. So in conclusion, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 is a terrible game. There are just too many issues to overlook. It's just an all-around bad game. There's no light way to say it. There wasn't a single stage I enjoyed or found remarkable, and when I got to the end of each one, I didn't even get any satisfaction. I was only glad it was over. So yeah, don't waste your money, don't buy this game. This game is better left forgotten, Sonic fan or not. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving a like and subscribing to the channel. I'm open to any suggestions to make my videos better, so maybe leave a comment and I'll reply to it as soon as I can. Anyways, have a good day.